Ladies and gentlemen, the following contest, scheduled for one fall, is for the World Wrestling Federation Women's Championship. About to approach the ring.
You're gonna see, ladies and gentlemen, jump in this matchup here.
You know the show from the land of the rising sun. Weighing 220 pounds, the challenger, Bull Nakano.
Ohayou gozaimasu, konnichiwa, konbanwa, for whenever you're listening to the Joshi Pod, your weekly podcast about the world of Japanese women's wrestling, Joshi Wrestling. I'm your host, Eric Howard, coming to you from beautiful San Diego, California. You heard the opening. It only seemed fitting to start the show with Howard Finkel introducing a Joshi wrestler. It's been a real rough week in U.S. wrestling. Many WWE stars lost their jobs, but definitely the roughest news this week was the passing of Howard Finkel. He was the voice of wrestling for me. I watched the old WWE from Madison Square Garden when the microphone would come from the ceiling. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. Or from like WrestleMania 1 and stuff, even before that. But yeah, it was the coolest thing was seeing that and hearing his voice. And new. So we wish him and his family and loved ones the very best. Shows are still on hold, guys. Obviously, from the to fight the spread of COVID-19. I'm happy some companies are still trying to put content out, like Ice Ribbon and Tokyo Joshi Pro are having live autograph signings, while like companies like Gato Move are putting on the Choco Pro shows, which are amazing, and even doing watch-alongs with Aki, Emi, and Mei Saruga. So check those out, guys. Pay attention to the social media and jump in when you can. Some of us can in the U.S. On the West Coast, it's kind of weird times, but I'm trying my best to jump on when I can. You guys in Europe and stuff might have, depends on what time they start. But yeah, let's all do our best to jump in and join in whenever we can. I'm enjoying corresponding with you guys on those live watch-alongs with Gato Move. I'm on those pretty consistently. I'm also doing the hashtag Joshi Wrestling Dance-Off, and it's in full swing. It's a lot of fun, guys. I really enjoy interacting with you guys on that as well. I love the you tagging me on when more of the women put out dance videos. It's pretty fun. Starlight Kid raised the bar this week. Shuri Kondo was my girl for a long time, but Starlight Kid blew her away, unfortunately. I love me some Shuri, but Starlight Kid can't be denied. And then Maya Yukihi showed up out of nowhere, giving us something I didn't know she had in her. So follow along, hashtag Joshi Wrestling Dance Off. It's a lot of fun. Passes the time. I do want to thank you guys for listening to last week's episode with Gato Move's Yuna Mizumori. It was a different chat. The Tropical Yahoo! Getting Aki to say that however many times I lost count, but it was a whole lot of fun. If you missed that episode, please go back and listen. Our archives are filling up with some really fun interviews. In our first 23 episodes, we've had the likes of Ice Ribbon's Tekla and Akane Fujita, the mighty Lulu Pencil, the GOAT Bull Nakano, and Stardom Legends, the Alpha Female, and Chris Wolf. And speaking of Stardom Legends, on this 24th episode of the Joshi Pod, we have Cheerleader Melissa in the big main event interview. This is a real fun one for me. I've been basically watching Melissa since the start of her career, so we go into a little bit of her U.S. background and how it turned into her going into Japan, and she became a pretty big player with Stardom, helping bring talent over from the U.S. It's a real fun chat. She's a real fun person to talk to. She was so fun to talk to, I forgot to let Melissa plug her social medias. So let me do that for her now, and we'll do it again a little bit later. But you can follow her on Instagram at RealFutureLegend. She has an OnlyFans, onlyfans.com/cheerleadermelissa, and on Twitter at FutureLegendsCF. She'd also like you guys to visit diva-dirt.com. There may be some collaboration with Diva Dirt and the Joshi Pod in the near future. Before we get to that big main event interview this week, I wanted to continue the segment we started last week and talk about an online Joshi service. And that segment is brought to you by who else but Quiet White Designs. You guys know if you need a t-shirt, podcast artwork, anything, Snapchat filters, whatever you need. Talk to Nolan and the team at Quiet Wyatt Designs. Find them on Facebook at QUIETWYATT, one word designs. I shouldn't probably make a t-shirt of that, of QUIETWYATT, one word designs. You can also find them on Twitter at QWD_official. And they also have a website, QWDofficial.com. So the service we're going to talk about this week is called Wrestle Click. It's a site where you can purchase individual matches. Not everybody's into streaming services or subscription services. So kind of going a la carte here in picking the matches you want to see. While I'm researching for this episode, I got pretty deep into the rabbit hole here and found a ton of Joshi talent on the site. Like Ray and Leon took on Mia Yim and Davina Rose, who's Bailey. You can see today's guest, Cheerleader Melissa, pretty much against everybody. Yumi Oka, Aquino. She faces former guests Thunder Rosa, Priscilla Kelly, Rhea O'Reilly. There's other matches on there with Chris Wolf. Kana's on there, Asuka in WWE fighting Cheerleader Melissa in 2011 and 2014. Some pretty cool matches with like Hikaru Shida facing Ember Moon on there. Io Shirai's on there. They have matches from Shimmer, Chick Fight, Alternative Wrestling Shop, APW from the Bay Area in California, JD Star, Stardom USA. Yeah, there's just the Kaori Oniyama's on there. Tsukasa Fujimoto's on there. Hiroya Matsumoto, Nanai Takahashi, Ayako Hamada, the list goes on and on and on. Dash Chisako, Sumi Sakai, Makoto, Io Shirai. I'm not sure if I'm repeating some of these names. I'm going off the top of my head for all these names I remember seeing on the site. Kairi Hojo, Mayu Iwatani from Stardom. So there's a ton of Joshi, and that's just scratching the surface of what's on there. So again, it's just a couple bucks for a match. So again, some people it's that $10 a month or whatever for a streaming service is not what you're looking for. A la carte it here. Go and type in a name, and it's pretty cool to see some of these people before they were WWE wrestlers. The women and facing off against like Hikaru Shida, like I said, against Ember Moon, which was pretty cool to see. It's kind of a fun match we probably won't see anytime soon. But yeah, check that out. They also have men's matches as well. They've got matches where Cheerleader Melissa's facing like Super Dragon, and she's teaming with Bryan Danielson or Daniel Bryan in another match. So there's just a giant rabbit hole. Again, it's an a la carte service. Find the matches, the people you like, pay a couple bucks, watch those matches. It's definitely a really fun, a different type of service online. But check them out. You clickwrestle.com. Again, visit clickwrestle.com. It allows you to a la carte matches and pay a small fee per match.
Hello, I'm Mitsuru. I love beer. I want beer from your country. Please bring beer. Thank you for listening, Joshi Podcast. I will wait your beer. See you.
Before I get to the big main event interview, again, I want to thank you guys for downloading and listening to this episode of the Joshi Pod. If you'd like to follow us on Twitter, you can at the Joshi Pod. Remember to follow Cheerleader Melissa on Instagram at Real Future Legend. Her OnlyFans is onlyfans.com/Cheerleader Melissa, and on Twitter at Future Legend CF. Guys, thank you for listening. Please enjoy this chat with Melissa. Arigatou gozaimasu. Guys, want to welcome to the Joshi Pod. This is super exciting for me. I told her before we went on air that the first time I saw her was with the Ballard brothers in Southern California, but that's not exactly true. The first time I saw her wrestle was at the Galaxy Theater in Los Angeles for UPW. She was wrestling Looney Lane. Welcome to the show, guys. You know her from Stardom. You know her from Arsion. You know her from Lucha Underground, TNA, pretty much staple of the Joshi wrestling, women's wrestling community. Welcome to the show, Cheerleader Melissa. Thanks for joining us on the Joshi Pod.
Yes, thank you for having me, and thank you for that spectacular build-up. I would have never even thought of that for myself. Yes.
So the first time I saw you, like I said, was at the Galaxy Theater. It's like 2001, 2002, something like that, in Los Angeles or Santa Ana, Orange County, wrestling Looney Lane. How did somebody who's wrestling Looney Lane at the Galaxy and wrestling at the APW Garage end up in Japan pretty much within a year of you starting your in-ring competition?
Oh, well, funny you should say that. I want to say it was before that, because I remember I went to Japan in 2002, and so we're talking like that had to have been earlier. That had to have been, oh my gosh, I gotta figure. I don't know.
I'm
feel
too
like
old.
when
I
you saw
can't
me-
remember.
Me too. But no, that is just like crazy that like you brought it up. How somebody go from wrestling Looney Lane? Like, did I wrestle Looney Lane? Because I honestly don't remember wrestling her at UPW in a singles match or anything.
I think you did. I think I remember that. Unless, I mean, my mind is half gone anyway. But I almost remember that.
I mean,
on.
we
Let me go. Let me go to the match.
let's
Let me
look
go to
at
the Magic
this.
Cage match website real quick to see
Please do.
who you wrestled.
I didn't have many matches at UPW. I'll tell you that much.
All right. It says on August 22nd, 2001, you had a grudge match with Looney Lane at the Galaxy Theater.
At the Galaxy Theater. Oh,
And then you had a match with Shannon Ballard against Frankie Kazarian and Looney Lane in a mixed tag team match as well.
I remember that too. I remember that. And
That was UPW rough cut.
it's so crazy because well, realistically, like what happened, I mean, well, realistically what happened is that you know what, it's funny because I forgot about those, but to be honest, like I wasn't getting a lot of, I mean, if that's the only two matches I had, those are the only two matches I had over there, because I was not getting a lot of opportunities at UPW, and I feel bad like saying that, but like it's the absolute, but for me it was the absolute truth. I started training like at a super early age, and then I was with the Ballard brothers, and then at and then they started, here came UPW, and I was a part of the team or whatever. So like, well, no, you don't know. but it was very, but for me, that was the reason how you go from going from Japan from UPW was like me just moving on and just like straight up like pure rejection, I'm kind of, I used to be so like bitter about like my UPW days, but now I'm so grateful because it gave me like the drive to, go on and move on and to bigger and better things and move on to Japan, because basically what happened is that like, at UPW they had, I'm not going to like name names or anything, but they had a manager who basically like his gimmick was like, oh, I want to manage all the international wrestlers. So like, I have like my international army or whatever. So the Ballard brothers were from Canada. And when he learned that, Rick Bassman was helping the Ballards get a WWE tryout, he was just like, oh, Cheerleader Melissa, you're not a part of the team anymore. So he literally like kicked me off the team. He literally like kicked me off so that, and he went.
Was it a big guy? Was it a big guy that was the manager?
It sure was.
Oh, okay.
It sure was. And he was just like, get out of here, move cha-cha. And I was just like, all right, fine. So, but and like Ballard's like got a try and I wasn't allowed to go, and like I was super like mad and bummed about that. And then like there was, and not naming names, but when I would show up to UPW classes, like I was clearly like way more advanced than the beginners classes, but then I would show up to the advanced classes, and the trainer at the time literally told me, go home, females don't belong in the advanced class.
Jeez.
Yeah, literally to my face in front of everybody, and I'm like, and I was young at the time, so like I was just like horrified, humiliated. He's just like, what are you doing here? Girls don't belong in advanced class. And like it just sucked because I remember I was trying, you know what I mean? It was frustrating enough to get kicked off my own team, but then like I'm being rejected at the advanced class, and I was like clearly way advanced for the other, you know, for the beginners. And I was just like, all right, you know what? And I remember like it took a 3-hour drive to UPW classes. And I was just like, whatever. And
That's
you
like
know,
that's like 3-4 miles in Los Angeles, though, right?
right. Pretty much, yeah. So then, like, thankfully, I was still traveling with the Ballard Brothers when we would work all these other promotions, including All Pro Wrestling. And All Pro Wrestling really stood out because their talent was really good. And what I mean really good is that, you know, the Ballards and like they would have these matches with all the APW talent, and like, you know, they were all just like really clean, really solid. Basically, the way that the APW wrestlers wrestled in the ring, like we all automatically assume, oh wow, these guys got like, you know, 5, 6, 7 years experience. And we would ask them, so how long you been wrestling? Oh, you know, a year and a half. And we're like, what? And I remember thinking, like, what is the training like over here? Like, how are these guys wrestling that good in that short a time? So that was really what happened. It was just like, you know, I was getting the pushback from UPW, and I was just like, well, going to APW. And then it was up in APW is when I got connected with Japan.
Who was the conduit? Who was the person that got you in contact with somebody from Japan?
Basically, it was a girl who was already in Arsion. Do you remember Jessica, Bionic J?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So she lived in the Bay Area. So she lived, and Opera Wrestling was in the Bay Area. So I think basically at the time, Arsion was like looking for new talent, and Arsion got in contact with their American team who contacted Bionic J, and she's just like, hey, I heard they got some girls at the All Pro Wrestling School. I'll swing by. So, you know, thankfully, like I was in the right place at the right time when I got connected with her.
So was it a dream of yours to go to Japan to wrestle?
Well, definitely. Well, at the time, definitely. Like you got to remember, I was really training my butt off, like with All Pro Wrestling, and like there weren't a lot of local females to work with, and like the way I was training was like no different, than like how all the males trained. I was really like putting 100% into it, and I have had like a few like WWE tryouts at the time, and the best explanation I could say is I was trying out, or I was, asking for a job that didn't exist, because we had, like the Diva era and all of that. And that's just like never was me. And, for me in my brain, I was just like, that was my only option. It's like, I need to try to get over there because that's what I'm looking for.
Because you're a wrestler.
Yeah.
That's what I always remember that about you when I saw you wrestle. It's like, she's a wrestler. She's not, no offense to Looney Lane. If you're listening, I love you, Looney. But I mean, it was just a little bit different, I think, than some of the other women that were out there.
No, and it was. And if you were like a Looney Lane or like any of the other girls, out there, then like, yeah, you got a lot of bookings on UPW. You got a lot of attention, and like that's fine for what it was, because, that was basically the industry at the time, and it just, wasn't really a fit for me. Like I just always kind of felt like an outcast.
So when you went over to Japan, did you fly over with Bionic J?
No, I flew over with Taylor Matheny.
The girl from Tough Enough?
Yep.
That's quite a bit of difference from where you're at in your career.
I know, right?
So what was it like? So I'm guessing you were crazy excited to fly over to Japan. What was it like when you first arrived in Japan?
It was probably my first time in like, it's one thing to go to a country like Canada because everybody speaks English and it's not that different, but it's, definitely an experience when you're young, and to go into a foreign country where just like everything is different and the lifestyle is different. So I think I think for me, like the wrestling and training was like more exciting, but it was just getting used to, the culture and getting around and communicating, but it's so much fun. It's so great because your brain goes into survival mode, and you're just always like, you're not just like learning wrestling, you're just like learning how to survive and how to get around and just kind of make your way.
And this is before there was, apps on your phone that could tell you where to get from here to here to here to here.
Oh my God, don't get me started on that right now. Oh my God, that is so true because I went out there in 2002. So it's just so funny that from 2002, from the last time I was there, I don't remember the last time I was there. I think it was 16 or 7, no, maybe 17. I don't remember, but like, and then I see the younger talent out there, and they're like, oh, catch it with the apps, and I get so mad. I'm like, oh my God, do you know how many nights I've got lost because the train stopped at a certain hour, and I'm trying to use a paper map, and I'm getting sent to different train stations, and I don't know how to get home.
And if you get out of the city, I mean, there's like no English on any signs at all out there either.
No,
You're,
nothing.
Yeah, you're pretty stuck.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Thankfully, like if that ever happened, like I learned how to just take a taxi and basically just take a taxi to the train station that was nearest to the place we were staying, and then I just like walk home from the train station. Yes, that was normal.
2002. I mean, that's a bit of old school time of Joshi wrestling. What was the training like for Joshi wrestling at that time?
So it was for Arsion, and you have to remember that, like, in comparison to American training, people are balancing a job. They're training two or three times a week for a few hours or whenever they can. Out there, if you're contracted, it's your job. It's your job. Like we were there all day long, and even though the training was like excruciating at times because basically they had at the time there was this huge like warehouse building, like a big warehouse building. On the bottom floor there was the ring, there was the showers, some bathrooms, the kitchen, and then upstairs were all the bedrooms. And Taylor and I shared a bedroom, so it was all the bedrooms, and we had like a small bathroom up there, but like we lived there. It was just like we were doing it it was all the time. Like we got up in the morning and then we trained for a couple hours, and then we had a 1 hour break, and then we trained for a couple more hours, like the normal routine training practice stuff. And then if we wanted to learn anything more, then we had to stay after that. So there were days where like training could be anywhere from 5 to 8 hours, and that's like without a break, and it's just depending on like how long we stayed afterwards.
Were you
Yeah.
physically prepared before you went over there to handle that kind of training?
I don't think anybody's physically prepared to like for that kind, but we caught on pretty quickly though. Caught on pretty quickly. I mean, it's just you just got in the routine. And here's the thing, like when we got brought over there, and like those were long days, but young girls, the green girls that are there, like that barely started before we even got out there. I mean, they were cleaning. I mean, they lived there at the dojo too, but they cleaned for everybody. They washed everybody's gear. They prepared and like packaged everybody's gear. After the main training in the evening was done, they always cooked for the senseis. So like they even had like a lot more responsibilities than we did. Like we had almost as much as they did. Like I would say we had as much as they did as far as like training and like ring crew, because that was part of the deal. Like we were like part of the ring crew too, and like we were the green girls as well. I would say the only thing extra that they did on, besides the ring crew and training was, definitely like the cooking and washing, like all like the talent's gear. And like when we had a tour bus, everybody had assigned seating, like everybody had their own row, and everybody had like their own like special setup, like their own special pillows and blankets and everything. And like they set all that up. And like same thing for like the locker rooms, like before like the main, the senior talent got there. The Green Girls set up everybody's spot in the locker room, with names, labels, trash bins, like how they want their station set up. So like, yeah, it was like pretty detailed back in the day.
So them being so disciplined and so detailed, I mean, is that what makes them better wrestlers in the long run? I mean, seriously, the Japanese wrestlers are better than most American wrestlers. Does it start from like that point? If, when they first get in there, they have to do all these things, just teaching discipline, teaching routine, teaching, what they need to do.
And that's, yeah. I mean, I think I would attribute that more to character. That's a big factor to everybody's character. Like, it's so funny. I live in Las Vegas now, and it wasn't that long ago. It was like a couple of years ago. So Mariko Yoshida was my trainer, like my main trainer and everything. And if you look at her history, it was so funny. Like, get this, like Mariko Yoshida was a green girl when Medusa was at All Japan Women, right? So that's like a trip. That was a trip for me when I learned that. But it's just so funny how like her work ethic was so good. And it wasn't that long ago that a couple of years ago she hit me up and she's like, hey, what are you doing? And I'm like, hey, you doing good? Are you doing okay? She's like, oh, I want to come to Las Vegas. And I'm like, yeah, of course, anytime. She's like, great, I arrived July 13th. I'm like, whoa. Oh, okay. She was serious. She's like, 3 weeks, okay? And I'm like, sure. Come on over. But it was just so great, like reconnecting with her and spending time with her and hang out. And it's just and the thing is, like, the reason why I bring this up is because what a great, sweet person. I cannot put that over enough about her. Just even like, she was my guest for like 3 weeks and she just helped out absolutely like whenever she could. And, I really do. And everybody that I know now and that I wrestled with in Japan 2002 are like that. They're just so humble. They're kind-hearted. Like, they all have great work ethic. And there's just such great people to this day. And I just think that's so important to bring that to like younger talent for, 20 years down the road and makes them like who they are.
So going back to that time, was there anybody you got in the ring with that just kind of just blew your mind about how good they were?
Akino. Akino, Nokia, same thing. But, Akino was really good, crazy good. She still is crazy enough. I'm pretty sure she's still wrestling. Who like had really crazy charisma was Lioness Asuka.
I was going to ask you about her.
Crazy charisma. Like, her fans were just bonkers about her, and that blew my mind. Like, her charisma, like everything she did was great, but like, oh my god, like when she came out connected with the audience, that was just mind-blowing to me.
How did the fans take to you when you first went over?
No, I'm kidding. They're like, whatever. I think they took pretty good. They had us as a heel team, so it was me, Taylor, and Jessica, and we were like, of course, like the evil U.S. people, and I think like our team was called U.S. Invasion, and I'm like, now as I say it right now, I'm like, oh my god, right?
It was a different time. It was a
way different time. I know, it was such a way different time.
Was there like, how like merch, they do the crazy merch now. Was there merch and stuff and meeting with the fans back in 2002 as well?
Yeah, I don't feel that that's changed at all. Everybody was always very interactive with the merchandise and how they like set it up before shows, during shows, and after shows. I'm sure you've been to several shows in Japan.
Yeah,
right? Yeah. I feel like that hasn't changed at all.
Did they know who Taylor Matheny was from Tough Enough or no?
I mean, I'm sure Rossy Ogawa probably promoted it and wrote that name a little bit every time she was advertised in like the pamphlets and flyers. I'm sure the hardcore fans knew who she was. Because you got to remember, like, Rossy Ogawa, Arsion, Stardom, um, he clearly, his promotions, anything that he's worked in or had his hand in, he's clearly like got his own style.
Mm-hmm.
Like the foreigner, basically foreigners versus Japanese, and like mixing it all up and stuff like that. So to have kind of a high profile name foreigner in the mix, he's going to ride that coattail for a while.
We'll get to more about Rossy in a bit.
Oh, sure. Oh, good.
So you left in
Exactly
2000.
what I signed up for. I'm talking to you.
you know it was coming. So you left in
It's all good.
2002. Do you think you made I mean, obviously you did, but when you left, did you think you made a positive impression when you left at the end of your tour?
Oh, geez, I hope so. In 2002?
Yeah.
Yeah. No. I mean, I know it was good for me. I'm sure I did, because he brought me back off and on, like way later on in life. So that's good.
But your confidence, I mean, you were confident after you left that, hey, I did it pretty good.
Yeah, you know what? I was young, and I think I, wasn't really sure, because, it was just such a game changer. And then, to be honest, when I came home, that's when like things like really changed. That's when like my style, my bookings, and like everything like really changed. And I'm like really grateful for that experience, because it just really helped me out and elevated me in the United States.
So people, promoters, companies, when you come back from Japan, there's a little shine on you from the extra.
There's a little shine, but there was a really hard lesson that came with that too. Because here's the thing, like going back to the Ballard Brother days, basically the cheerleader gimmick was given to me by the Ballard Brothers, but we both know there's no cheerleaders in hockey. Come on. Like, really? Like, are they on ice skates? Like, like there's no cheerleaders in hockey. Like, come on. But I was cheerleader Melissa of a hockey team. So anyways, so when I came home, I'm thinking like, oh, I'm just going to be Melissa, and I'm going to be so great, and everybody's going to love me as just Melissa. And I tried that for a while when I came home from Japan. And oh boy, did that not work out for me at all. And that was like a big like lesson on how much entertainment is such a big role and big factor in the world of professional wrestling, because I was just such a little meathead at the time, and such like, I want to be a wrestler. And I was just so into that. And that's what I realized. I had to bring like the pom-poms and the skirt back and cheerleader Melissa back. And I was just like, oh. But you know what? I did it. I rolled with it.
So you continued your career on, and you don't go back to Japan for another, was it 3 years, I guess?
Right. And they went through a lot of changes too. They went from, I think Arsion shut down, and then they were A to Z, and then they shut down again. Like there's a lot of changes going on.
So you did a couple of one-offs or a couple of small tours. What was it like to go back 3 years later, then 5 years later? How had Japan changed? How had you changed? How had pretty much everything changed in those years that you were gone?
I don't feel like it really changed that. I mean, to be honest, the first time I was in Japan, I was there for 3 months, or actually longer than that. So the other tours I did after that weren't that long, and we were like constantly back to back to back. There was really like no downtime in between. So, I mean, for you to throw that question at me, I was just like, ooh, I really don't have an answer for that one.
That's okay.
It's like, I wouldn't say that much change, but working for different companies was certainly really cool and really fun, though.
So you make your big triumphant return in 2014 with Stardom.
Right.
Thrown into the deep end pretty quickly with a match with EO.
Oh, yeah, I remember
that. Where were you at in your career as far as your in-ring abilities, your mental, where you're at mentally, and what were you thinking when you came back, so many years later to Japan?
To be honest, I was surprised, because honestly, that year, or that time frame, it was really shocking to me, because I was doing like a lot of things for myself. Like I was honestly, I was like really enjoying life, and I was getting at the time I was like in one of like the best shapes of my life, and it's so funny. It's almost like I started this phase of just like, oh, whatever happens, what happens. I'm like, I'm not trying to go anywhere, trying to do anything. I was just really enjoying everything. And like when I started getting titles from multiple companies in the United States, I was like, really? Like, why? So shocked. So, and then here came the booking with like Stardom. I'm like, sure, why not? Okay, cool. you know. And then when I went over there, to be honest, it was really great. Like catching up with, Rossy Ogawa, and then like meeting all the new talent. And then like when I met Io, oh my God, like it was really fun, or interesting, just learning about her background, and because she has a gymnastics background, and watching her perform in the ring, when I wasn't wrestling her. God, what an exceptional talent.
So Rossi's a bit of an enigma to wrestling fans. People have, I talked to you know Fumi Saito, right?
Of course.
He and I chatted about Rossy a couple times when I was over
Good.
in Tokyo and stuff. But from your perspective, from a wrestler's perspective, explain what makes Rossy special, wacky, all the above, whatever. Just to explain Rossy to us.
I wouldn't even go wacky or weird or anything. The best way to describe it is that like Rossy is a businessman. He's he's a promoter, but he's a businessman, and he's always going to make decisions on what's marketable and most profitable. And that's why he's always stood out. And that's always why, if there were ever, various opinions from various wrestlers about him, about his decisions, you have to remember that like he's always going to do things for either like the shock value or what he thinks is going to make, the most money for the company at the time. And one thing I always liked and respect about Rossy is like no matter like what issues or problems like come out, he's very quick to like throw things under the water, for the sake of what's best for the company for Stardom, or what's best for the company at the time, making decisions for the company, and like it's very funny because like I would absolutely say the same thing, like about Vince Russo. I worked for Vince Russo at Impact or TNA at the time. And, there's a lot of popular and unpopular opinions about his decisions. And Russo and I have had disagreements on plenty of stuff. But Russo and I like get along because not only do we respect each other, but I understand. You just have to look at things from other people's point of view and through other people's eyes, and just know that they're pitching these ideas and making these decisions for the best interest of the company in the long run, in the bigger picture. What's going to keep the company alive 3, 4, 10 years from now, and, some people have opinions about it in a short-term sense, good or bad or whatever, but I mean, I will say that like they're long-term thinkers, and that's the best way to put it.
And Rossy's been nothing but successful. I mean, geez, look at his track record.
Yeah, no, he loves to create stars, and he loves to create stars from scratch. And when he brings people on, he can, realistically, he can figure out like, who's someone that can be very productive in the long run, within a time frame. And he's never changed. I will say that right now. He has never changed. Never changed. It was so funny when I went back there years later. I was like, oh my God, you have not changed one bit. You're still a bad driver.
He still has snazzy suits?
Huh?
He still has snazzy suits that he wears with nice hats?
Yes, the suits, the hats. Yes, like I don't know if anybody else has ever said the same podcast, but he's like a terrible driver. He's the worst driver ever. And that has not changed. It was so funny because I was involved. So what happened is that I was involved with with Medusa's not comeback, but she came back. She came to Stardom, and her and Bull Nakano had that like kind of reunion at Stardom. I don't know if you like recall that. Yeah. So I was involved with that. And then when we got like Medusa over to Japan, like even she said the same thing. She's just like, "Oh, Rossy, you're still a terrible driver."
You drive on the wrong side. The steering wheel's on the wrong side. What do you want?
Oh no, it goes.
Have you ever tried to drive in Japan?
He let me drive in Japan. Oh, that's bad. I said that.
I'm terrified too. I'm not sure. I always when I go there, it's like, oh, I want to rent a car and drive. I'm like, it's probably not a good idea.
Well, it was okay. Well, I can't see. This is so bad. I can't believe you let me do that. But it was years ago. It's okay. We can look back and laugh. But when I was out there, they did a couple shows in Osaka. So Osaka is like a drive from like LA to San Francisco. It's a good like 6 to 8 hours, depending on like how many stops, traffic, blah blah blah. And then it was so funny. I was just like, yeah, you should let me. I really was kidding, like because like I talk a lot of smack, not expecting anything to happen. And I'm like, yeah, of course, Rossy, you should let me drive. He's like, really? I'm like, yeah. He's like, are you a good driver? I'm like, I'm an excellent driver, no tickets. He's like, you have your license? I'm like, yeah, I got my license right here. Not knowing he was gonna say yes.
He called your bluff, huh?
He totally called my bluff. And he was just like, okay, just for a couple hours. I'm like, I'm sorry, excuse me. I'm like, okay, but luckily, like when he did let me like drive the van, it was only for like a couple hours on the freeway, so there was really like it was basically an on ramp and off ramp, and I had somebody in front like just telling me like where to go. Yeah, but there was no like right turn, left turn, like it was basically freeway.
I would not change the lane. I would stay in the same lane the entire time.
I sure did. You bet I wasn't changing lanes.
When Fumi and I drove around last time I was there, and he was making turns and stuff, I was like flinching. He's like, oh, we're going the wrong. Oh, no, it's Japan. We're going the right way.
Oh, my gosh, what a jerk. I can totally see him doing that, though. Oh, my gosh.
So you come back let's get back on track here a little bit here in the ring. So you come back and you defeat Io Shirai when you come back for the 5-star. Mm-hmm. Rossy must have saw something from him to put you over Io that quickly.
God, I hope so. I'm sorry.
So you went back for the 5-star. Did you have to go through the training and stuff, the day-to-day, all that kind of good stuff? Was it Nanai who was training at the time?
Yes, Nanai. Yes, she was training at the time. I will and participated in everything, but definitely by then times have changed. Meaning it wasn't the 8-hour training days basically. So like back in Arsion had a building. They had their own building, had their own warehouse. It was not airplane hair huge, but it was like really huge, So, but then by then, basically what I learned is that lots of wrestling companies paid for and had a reserved time slot at the 01 dojo. Mm. Yeah, so going to training every day, it went from long days to like you had to be at training from these hours to these certain hours. I think our training was from 2 to 5 weekdays, and that was a requirement. We had to be there 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. weekdays. So, and that was strictly all wrestling training, which I would say as far as wrestling training, that wasn't that much different because in Arsion, it was still the same amount of training. Just the only difference is that in the early morning, we were doing 2 hours of like cardio and weights and core and stability. It was all like gym training, not wrestling training.
So in the style of wrestling, it changed a bit too, I think, from 2002 to 2014 in Japan. The in-ring style change. What would you say the biggest difference was in style with Arsion to Stardom?
That's really tough because I to be honest, I think that all depends on like who the current senseis are at the time. Because everybody's got like their own opinions. Some people are more old school, some people are more modern. Because I was at Stardom when Nanae was there, and then I also came back to Stardom when Nanae was no longer there, and now Io was a big trainer. So when Io was there and in charge of training, she really like implemented like a lot of her gymnastics training into wrestling, which I thought was really cool. Was she still like on like the early younger side? Yeah, but she was good for the company because she was bringing a lot of innovative stuff and innovative training, techniques to practices every day, which was great because, she had me doing stuff that I would never try or do again ever. No, like, she was super great. And it was just, the transitional times, when it came to like Rossy and the companies were just crazy and complicated every time, things changed. But clearly I would, when you say times, honestly, it's just, I mean, who's the main person at the time? What did they want? What's the bigger vision? And that's also a discussion with the promoter. What is the promoter's bigger vision? Because, when Nanae was in charge or when Io was in charge, whenever I go to Stardom, like they had meetings regularly on how training was going. So Rossy always had to make sure that the training accommodated his bigger vision. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So in 2015, the roster was pretty stacked in Stardom. The Kairi Hojos, the the Nikki Storms are there. The Mai Iwatanis. All this talent. Hudson Envy. I'm a big fan of Hudson Envy as well. She was there. I mean,
I was there with all of them.
That's a pretty stacked roster at the time.
Yeah.
So how did you become? Okay, so getting away from the ring, how did you become a person with influence as far as bringing talent over from the U.S. over to Japan?
Well, it's people. Funny you. Go ahead.
No, many people have brought up your name as the one who's helped them get over to Japan.
Wow, that's very flattering. Wow. But yeah, I mean, going back to reconnecting with Rossy, and Rossy and I like have this history or whatever, and I remember because you brought up Hudson Envy, Rossy was looking for a heel character at the time to bring in. And I had just like met Hudson, and I felt like Hudson was a really good fit for what Rossy was really looking for at the time. And really that's how it all started and kind of got the ball rolling because, I recommended Hudson and like she worked out really well the first tour that she came over.
And then like somebody like Thunder Rosa, you helped bring over as well.
Mm-hmm.
Is that through the whole Bay Area?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, yeah. It kind of just snowballed after that, really, because after Hudson and then Rossy was like, because I think here's the thing. I think Rossy really trusted me at the time because I felt like that he knew that I knew what he would always be looking for as far as talent wise at the time. Because it's different every time. So, for example, normally it's actually more uncommon unless he really, really like needs like a monstrous or like heel persona. It's very uncommon for him to be looking for that because, like, it's so funny. Like one of the issues that I dealt with so much at the time was tattoos, believe it or not. Because a lot of people who like are familiar with Japanese culture, if you have a tattoo, you're associated with the Yakuza. So like,
Hudson has a few tattoos.
Well, yeah. Yeah, let's not like understate that. Girlfriend is covered in that. And that was like my concern too. Like, and I already knew that from like way before. But one thing that, you know what, this goes to answer your question of how Japan has evolved since then when I went back. Because like I would say like in the modern cities, like in the, like basically in the city, not the suburbs, but basically in the cities, people are definitely a lot more relaxed about tattoos. Not in the suburbs, but definitely in the cities. It's, it's not that uncommon to have foreigners walking around everywhere. And in wrestling, in Stardom, um, tattoos were always like a tricky issue because you can't be like half and half. You either have to like have little to none or have like a whole lot in extreme, like Hudson Ebony. You know what I mean? Because then there's a clear definition image wise as far as the entertainment perspective. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of the things like I dealt with. So when like at the time when I helped Hudson come over, and he was looking for a heel, and you got like this girl with a hardcore look covered in tattoos, head to toe, you know what I mean? Like he was absolutely loving it because it's a clear definition. She's got a clear image.
Mm-hmm.
She's just got an image. When she comes out, she's got a presence. When she came out, you can hear the audience like, oh my gosh, look at this girl, And it's what he wants, like going back to, what Rossy views as like very entertainment, and he knows his audience very well.
So you had your final tour there in 2015 with Stardom. Why didn't you go back, don't you think?
That honestly, that's when I kind of started transitioning into retirement, and I don't want to say that because you know how it is. Wrestlers say they retire and then they come back, and then they retire and they come back and they retire and come back. So no, I'm not having that retirement conversation with anybody. Like I'm clearly happy and satisfied with the work I've done in Japan. I'm good. I'm cool. Like I'm not gonna do a retirement tour and then come back again, like, and do another retirement tour and come back again. Like, no, do not put me in that. Do not put me there ever. Like that's just a no. Like I'm very happy to casually like fade out quietly. I'm good. Yes.
But occasional tours over to Japan aren't so bad, are they?
If I was a tourist, yes. Can I go over there as a tourist for once? I don't want to go there for work. Is that bad?
No.
I just want to go there to party. I don't want to go there to work.
I stayed in Shinjuku this last time. Oh my goodness.
Oh, good for you. Proud of you. Yes.
That's the first time I'd stayed there, and it's oh my goodness, yeah.
Did you stay up all night?
Yes.
Until the trains?
Too many times.
Oh my God, good for you. I'm very proud of you.
So you had a very good career after Japan as well. I mean, the TNAs, the Lucha Underground.
Lucha Underground, yeah. Lucha Underground was more after, yeah.
Yeah, but you had, I mean, besides Japan, you've had an outstanding wrestling career. Are you satisfied completely with what you've done in your wrestling career?
Well, yeah, and it hasn't stopped because now I've definitely transitioned. I've transitioned into just being to like a consultant / trainer out here in like, in the Las Vegas area. And like one of my little like pride and joys right now is, like Katie Forbes and RVD moved out to Las Vegas and like became my neighbors. And RVD like came on to the company with Impact, and like Katie really like wanted to be on too, so let me tell you, like after her first match, we got together and we just started just like working on stuff. And she is just like so amazing and so great because like, let me tell you, like her work ethic is so good. Like I've never had to push her. Like I would wake up in the morning and get a text from her. She's just like, want to train today? And I'm like, sure. And she'd come get me. And I'd be like, all right, let's do this, because working for Impact before, like I kind of know like the ins and outs and like, what they're, what they would look for or would not look for or whatever. And like having Katie get signed to Impact was just like so amazing. Like it was like watching, your child graduate college or something. Like I was just so proud of her. I mean, and it's so funny. We were just like talking earlier today because we're so bummed with like this quarantine lifestyle, happy quarantine. We haven't been able to like get in the ring or like do anything, whatever. So like I feel like everybody's just kind of going back to the ring rust days, you know, but that's kind of like, you know, what I've been transitioning to, you know, a lot of help. I have another student out here. Her name's Teresa. She's going by either Zoe or Lacey Ryan. I think she's like transitioning to like her first name, like Zoe. But it's funny, like her husband, Tom Howard, was one of my trainers at UPW, the good one, not the one that rejected me, the good one. The good one, the nice ones. Yeah, but like.
He's underrated, I think. I think not enough people know about
underrated.
him. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that. No, so great. So when they moved out here, it was so great to reconnect with him. But his wife is like so good. Like he's done such an amazing job, like training her. And then when we met, you know, I brought in basically just kind of brought in my consulting side from my Japan days and my Impact days and Lucha Underground days, you know, so I'm like really looking forward to like seeing her to evolve to something great. It's just so frustrating right now because like there was a lot of things like happening for her, and then the pandemic hit and I was like, oh my God, the world is literally against you, honey.
So do you think in like 30 years when people hear this podcast, they'll be like, what pandemic? What quarantine? They'll have to like Wikipedia to find out what the quarantine was?
I don't know. I think that all depends on how long this lasts. We don't know. We're only partway through this.
Yeah.
Like, we don't know if we're halfway. We don't know if we're just getting started. We don't know. We don't know. What if like next year, this time, we're still like cooped up in our homes? We don't know.
We'll have part 34 of our interview series.
Oh, gosh. And you know what? You take advantage while you can, because normally I don't like to do podcasts. So like the fact that you caught me at a good time and there was nothing to do.
I'll take it. Take
it. That's why do you think I was just like, let's go now? For those of you just joining in, he texted me like 5 minutes before this podcast started. Be like, sure, let's do this.
I had to drop the Ballard brothers' names on her a little bit and sweeten her up a little bit by saying, oh, I watched you wrestle way back when. And she's like, let's do it.
Oh, yeah, right.
Well, Melissa, I really appreciate you joining me on the podcast today. It was a great.
I hope it was entertaining and somewhat fun.
Oh, it was. I think a lot of people, a lot of current Stardom people need to go back and watch some of the older stuff too and see who led the way, who set the path for the current stars and the current gaijin that are over there. And you were one of the. You're one of the first gaijin I remember over in Stardom. So, and
no, I definitely appreciate that, and it was really cool to be in part of that, you know, process of Stardom, helping girls get over there. But yeah, like going back to like you asked how times have changed. You know, now Stardom is under different ownership, and to be honest, like I honestly don't know what the inner workings. You know what I mean? Like I'm not really like involved in that new process anymore, but I'm happy to be involved during the time frame that I was, and I'm happy to, you know, help talent evolve and like, you know, move forward in their careers. And remember, like, you know, I was involved when like Io and Kaidi and Mayu were part of Lucha Underground.
Mm-hmm.
Remember? So
that was fun. Yeah, they blew everybody's minds when they were on that show.
Let me tell you, like, that situation could not have worked out perfectly. That was a situation where like all the stars lined up in a row, and it just happened to happen. Like that was originally not supposed to happen.
Well, tell us what happened.
Well, like what happened was is that at the time I was really heavily involved with the Cauliflower Alley Club at the time, and I had and Stardom doesn't take breaks. Normally, they're a real company. They film TV every weekend, and all their girls are under contract and they have a schedule. And just like most companies, they have like a 2-week vacation. And Rossy Ogawa likes to, you know, work on vacation. So that's when like the Stardom USA shows came about.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got those going, and it just so happened to like match up with a couple of TV tapings. And then Lucha Underground talked to me, and I was like, oh, okay. And I talk to Stardom, and they were coming over. I was like, it was just one of those things where like it just happened to work out timing wise, because for any Stardom talent to take time away from their contractual obligations television wise is just, that doesn't happen.
Mm-mm. So what do you think about the women that are here now that are in the States wrestling, the Stardom women?
Like Io and Kaidi and
Yeah.
Kana? I mean, they're doing great. What do you think?
Oh, they're amazing. I mean,
Yeah, they're doing good.
does it surprise you a little bit that they left Japan to come here to the States to wrestle?
I mean, not at all, because they killed on Lucha Underground. I'm sure WWE and the other companies were going gaga for them. It's just because before that was like when they had the Stardom like USA or some shows, Lucha Underground, really wanted them for like an episode, and like I said, it just happened to work out timing wise. And Lucha Underground is not a wrestling company. They're a legit TV show, which means that everything is pre-taped and it's seasonal. It's seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Pro wrestling's not seasonal.
No.
It's all year round. Yeah, it's all year round. So.
Is it a weird thing where Americans or foreigners want to go to Japan and Japanese want to come to America and around the world to wrestle? I just find that kind of funny, that we all want what we don't have.
That's true, but I feel like that's what makes us grow.
Yeah.
That makes us grow. That's what makes us grow. It's just going to somewhere where we're not comfortable. And, like I was explaining earlier, our brains go into survival mode. I mean, that's how we grow, is when we're out of our comfort zone. When we stay too long in our comfort zone, we don't grow, we don't expand, we don't, and it's just, you get stale and you stay in the same place. And I knew, going back to my story at the beginning of our podcast, I knew it was going to get stale. I wasn't really getting anywhere. UPW wasn't like giving me a shot. It was just like I was getting kicked out of like pro class, and like I had to just like move on and like try to find something to like expand.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean,
no, you're right. You're 100% right.
Yeah, I mean, you have to grow. Like we all have to grow as human beings to better ourselves and find like what our true path in life is. And I really feel that Kaidi and Io are just finding their true path, like what they were put on this earth to. And I'm really not like that kind of person or spiritual or anything like that. But I mean, they're here for that, and they're the right people for that, and they're the right people at the right time.
Yeah, they're so good.
Yeah, it just worked out like, just so great. And this is just such a small detail, but I love that Io and like her sister, I've wrestled her sister before in Mexico, Io Mio, but I just love that, you have two girls with an incredible athletic, competitive gymnastics background that transitioned to pro wrestling. And now one of those girls is changing the game in the United States. That's a cool thing to be a part of.
Mm-hmm.
So cool.
And then you have Kana, who's kind of old school a little bit still too. She'll just beat
Kana.
you up.
Kana, yes. I've wrestled her in Shimmer, and I need to connect with her because I know she's out here in Las Vegas too. So
you should. That'd be awesome.
No, I totally need to, but pandemic.
Yeah. All right.
Virus.
Let's try to close the show again. Melissa, thank you so much for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Enjoy your dark Las Vegas right now, which I can't imagine. I mean, I've been to Vegas 1,000 times in my life. I can't imagine going there and it just being dark. That would be very strange.
Don't even imagine it. Let's just hopefully we'll connect when everything's lit up. How about that?
Yes, I'm always in Vegas at least 2-3 times a year. So let's maybe meet up sometime while I'm there.
Well, very good. We're in contact now.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was great.